listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast's fourth consecutive live stream. And I think we've actually got the start right for once. Today we'll be talking about the third match of the IPL season as Sunrisers Hyderabad took on Kolkata Knight Riders. I'm Jack Hope and today, as usual, I'm joined by Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross? I think Ross might have frozen. We're joined. There we are. We got you at the end there, Ross. I think your internet might be a little bit shaky, so I managed to get the tech right, but we were let down by your internet and have blown the start of another cricket podcast. Along with Ross, we are joined by DJ from Edges and Sledges. DJ, it's good to have you aboard. How are you doing?
Very well. The IPL has started. The sun is shining outside. We're coming out of lockdown. I can get a haircut tomorrow. So all is well with the world, guys. And how are you guys doing? It's IPL season again.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I think this sort of 2 months where there's cricket on every day, same time, and it's really high quality cricket is one of the best 2 month windows of the year. It's also this is a big occasion for us, DJ. This is a collaboration of currently the third and fourth top cricket podcasts in India, which may make us the third and fourth top cricket podcasts in the world. I'm not sure.
That's impressive. That's
Big.
impressive. Who's above us? Who's above us?
Just some establishment podcasts, the Grey Cricketer and the ESPN one, I think.
Gotta get rid of those guys. Gotta get rid of them.
Ross, do you want to give a few messages to our listeners and then provide a short summary of the cricket we watched today?
Yeah, my internet should be a bit more stable now. I hope so. Can you hear me loud and clear?
All good.
Yes, thank goodness for that. So I'm going to do the max summary in a minute. But you should like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cricket Pod. Let's go to the match summary then. So we were back in Chennai for Sunrisers Hyderabad versus Kolkata Knight Riders. Everyone's favourite 5'5" male, Dave Warner, won the toss and decided to chase in Chennai. Nitish Rana said thank you very much and proceeded to smash every wayward delivery all over the place. Sunrisers Hyderabad's bowling plan execution was ultimately poor, and even Rahul Tripathi could cash in. KKR's middle order came and went in the blink of an eye as the bowling slightly improved, but their fielding was where they really took home some wickets. It saw KKR post 187 and Sunrisers Hyderabad straight out of the blocks stumbled. They might as well have vomited all over themselves. It was an absolute disgrace of a start. 50s from Pandey and Bairstow were not enough as a disciplined KKR bowling unit consistently chipped away and overcame the dew factor to record what was a very comfortable victory.
Yeah, it was in the end, I suppose, wasn't it? Let's start with KKR's batting performance, I reckon, because that happened first, and because it was pretty special. It was probably the highlight of the game from a quality perspective. And as probably a little bit of a twist, the runs didn't necessarily come from the big guns that we're used to seeing them come from. DJ, how impressed were you with Nitish Rana and Rahul Tripathi?
Yes, Tripathi always been impressive since he made his debut, I think, for the rising Pune supergiant back under when MS Dhoni was captaining him. He opened the batting then. He came in at 3 today. So great innings from him, I thought. 53 of 29 deliveries. Just hit it clean. He's obviously got great hand-eye coordination. And once he hits it, it stays hit. It goes a long way. We saw that today. And Nitish Rana, I mean, he's been around for a little while, actually. He's played for the KKR. He was quite successful batting at 3 last year. We saw that they've changed up their order to make it a left-right combination with the departure or the omission of Nareen or Narayan. I keep calling him Nareen. I don't know why. But Narayan's been left out. And so they wanted the left hand, right hand up top. They got that with Nitish and Shubman. So an incredible partnership from those guys. As you said, it wasn't the runs didn't come from the more established players like the Russells and the Morgans and the DKs, but or the Shubman Gills, who were so prolific last season, but it came from the two uncapped players, actually, two players that haven't played for India as yet, and they certainly did their case no harm. So more Indian talent on display in the Indian Premier League. It's good to see.
It was really impressive. I brought Tripathi in as my free uncapped substitution on the IPL fantasy game, so I feel very good about myself. Right about now. He had a couple of good innings last year because he went up and down the order a little bit and they didn't really know how to use him. I thought that KKR's batting lineup today looked like it made a lot more sense. To me anyway. Ross, something that might not have made sense entirely was SRH's decision at the toss. You wanted to talk about this as well, maybe a point you'd have done differently. They won the toss and chose to chase. Is that weird in your mind?
I think so. I think based upon their team selection and based upon kind of what teams have typically done at Chennai, you kind of usually see them kind of bat first there because it becomes a little bit more difficult to bat on because of the spin bowlers that were typically used by CSK. But Sunrisers team, again, we spoke about their structural issues as a franchise anyway, and actually I think sometimes that filters down into their team. Or more often than not, in fact. I thought they were quite lucky to make the playoffs, and they kind of stink out the place for some of their performances, but perfectly honest. Someone like Kane Williamson, who is a very, very good captain, and they've got Dave Warner, who is a really good T20 player. Is that the right way round? And it's a question that always seems to bug me.
Yeah, they do. We were all talking just before the show started in our kind of warm-up and hellos that SRH really can be quite a tedious team to watch play cricket. And today, all of the tediousness was on display. I mean, they are a side. They set up, don't they, basically to try and restrict the other team to 160. And if that doesn't happen, they almost give up. And it felt a bit like that today. I mean, people do go on. In our previews and stuff, we were saying that we did think SRH would make the playoffs. It's certainly been one of the things that people have been saying on Twitter, and a lot of experts have said they might be the second best team in the tournament after Mumbai this year. The main reason people say that is the bowling, which we expected to be good. But today, Rashid Khan aside, it was pretty average, wasn't it, DJ?
Yeah, you'd expect Bhuvi and Natarajan to come in. Rashid Khan was fantastic. Nabi picked up a couple of wickets at the back end as well, but they just missed their lines a little bit. And I mean, it was also, we've got to give credit where it's due. The batting was excellent. Nitish Rana really did hit the bowlers off their line. But as Ross said, I mean, they're set up to defend 160. And I mean, I've gone on record on our podcast previously saying I find them a boring team to watch because they're so clinical, so effective. And I mean, the last time these two teams played, I remember there was a super over, and the biggest example of that was Warner dropping it at his feet and running a single instead of trying to get to that super over rather than smashing it. It's that mindset that these guys have, which is very effective. They make the playoffs. They've won it in 2016. But if Warner doesn't click, they don't really seem to have that firepower with the other batsmen up top. Of course, we saw a little bit of spark down the order from Abdul Samad, but I'm sure we'll come to all of that. It just wasn't good enough from the likes of Bairstow and Warner this time. I mean, Bairstow got a 50, but it was in 40 balls. So I'm sure while Manish Pandey will take some of the hate for it, the ginger assassin, as we like to call him, wasn't quite blameless.
I think on the bowling front, their bowling plan just felt a little bit off to me. And Mohamed Nabi's actually, I think it was his first and second over. But he's bowling to the left-handers because of the matchup, because he's a right-arm off-spinner. And yet he was trying to bowl darts into the pads, kind of on like a middle to leg stump line, but fine leg was up short. And it was the same. There was a couple just delicately put round the corner for four. And he was just like, where's actually the plan? And you saw in the middle overs when he came back for his final one or final two, that he slowed the ball down a little bit more, put it just outside the off stump. And it was much more effective. You kind of thought first game back, everyone would be on that and the discipline would be there from the start, and it just was really quite lacking. And the same goes for Sandeep Sharma as well, who actually disappointed.
It's the second game in a row as well where we've seen an Indian, a bowler who bowled really well against England in that England white ball series. Today it was Bhuvi. Sort of fall apart a little bit in a domestic game. Curious. It's curious. Or maybe they're just guys who can raise their game against England. We can add that to a long list of other players that starts with Angelo Matthews and goes on for about 4 or 5 different, 4 or 5 pages. A couple of other performances from that innings that we should probably touch upon. Dinesh Karthik was really, really good at the death. Plundered runs off. What did he face? About 10 balls, scored 20 odd. It was exactly what they needed to take the score from what looked like it was going to. They looked like they were going to peter out a little bit after a great start, and then he had a great over at the end to effectively put the game beyond that SRH side. And Rashid Khan with the ball. Would either of you like to eulogise about his performance, which was a little bit futile in the scheme of things, but was good.
Yeah, I can go first on that one because Rashid Khan is the flavour of Twitter today, isn't he? There's a handle called Flighted Leggy that's done a great piece of analysis on how teams had thought they'd cracked his code on when he bowls the googly, and Rashid has obviously picked up on that, and he's disguised his googly to take a hat trick in a big bash game, which is just, that we can tweet that out, and it's just an absolutely fantastic piece of analysis. But it tells you what kind of cricketer Rashid Khan is. He's probably the number 1 T20 cricketer in the world. He can bowl. He fields like a demon in the outfield. He's super fast across the field, and he can actually bat. They don't give him a shot in the Sunrisers Hyderabad, which is why I'm so frustrated with that franchise. There's so many exciting players that they've got, but they insist on batting Vijay Shankar or even Manish Pandey today. He kind of sucked the life out of the game, and you've got a Rashid Khan who can score like 40 off 13 balls or something. You've got Abdul Samad sitting there. Even Johnny Best almost seems to go into shell. David Warner doesn't smash the ball when he plays for the Sunrisers. Unlike when he used to play for Delhi, he was the big hitting opener. Now he bats at kind of 120, bats through the innings. It's just a mindset that those guys bring to the team. But I would love to see Rashid Khan bat more. That aside, an incredible cricketer. The one that got Shubman Gill, because Gill looked like he was in for a big one. That 6 he hit of Natarajan, that little flick that Shubman Gill is a beautiful batsman to watch, and to deceive him is quite something. I was sitting on my couch and he bowled that googly, and I just stood up and I said, wow, what a player.
Yeah, he certainly is. That, I think, leads us quite nicely on to the start of the SRH batting innings, because Warner did fall early. There's a theory going round world cricket at the moment that Warner has lost the ability to play outswing. I think we saw him fall again like that today, didn't we, Ross?
I think what I was really impressed with is Pranesh Krishna. He had the confidence from the England series, and he's got everything to be a good fast bowler. And what I liked about it was that he wasn't overawed by David Warner being at the other end. He was just like, do you know what? I'm going to get David Warner out. And it was that thing we saw so many times. Stuart Broad obviously had his number when they came over and played in the Ashes in England. But he kind of just tucked himself up, and I'm not sure what's kind of happened, but we've seen that dismissal time and time again from David Warner. I'm never going to be in a position to say David Warner has lost it. I don't think my credentials are quite up to that kind of level. But there is something there where what DJ was saying around that aggression that we used to see from David Warner doesn't seem to be there at the moment. And that if that aggression isn't there, why is he in the team?
It's kind of a good question. In the last IPL, we saw him start in 120 David Warner mode, and then when they actually needed to win some cricket matches, he rolled back the years a little bit and started to play shots. If I was going to speculate, I'd maybe say that the injury that he was carrying during the Border Gavaskar series might still be with him, because he didn't. I know. Normally you expect David Warner to be the centre of attention. He's like the Australian version of Kohli in a way, in that you can really see his emotions are very on display at all times. But today he sort of parked himself on the boundary and twiddled his moustache, and that was his main contribution to the match. Let's talk quickly about Bairstow and Pandey, because they probably deserve a little bit of credit here. SRH were 11 for 2 after 2 overs. Not a brilliant start in anyone's book. But I think probably at one point, I certainly felt like those two had given SRH maybe a possibility of winning the game. What did you think of that partnership, DJ?
And you're absolutely right. They were 11 for 2. They were struggling. They'd lost early wickets, and it's fine to take your time at that stage. I think firstly Bairstow got out at exactly the wrong time, hitting what was effectively a long hop, short and wide to I think Nitish Rana at point, and he got out at the wrong time. I mean, and then Pandey. The trouble with Pandey is that he's been in the Indian setup as well for a little while in the T20 side, but he's more an ODI batsman. But he doesn't seem to make it into that squad at all. So India have tried to use him as a T20 batter. He's been used as a number 3 for the Sunrisers Hyderabad for quite a while. He was used by KKR in the same. I think he used to play for KKR earlier. He just doesn't have that kind of fifth gear to kick on. And he's going to take a lot of the flack because they're going to talk about it being a match-losing innings. But he's effectively played the same innings as Bairstow. And someone like Dhoni would take a lot of flack for this kind of innings towards the end of his career, saying he's just stat padding, he's hitting sixes at the end to up his strike rate, collect runs, get to 50 and all of that stuff. But equally, what he needed was somebody at the other end, like a Samad, just smashing it, because he wasn't being able to get it off the square. For example, just to kind of roll the years back, if you look at the 2016 World Cup final, and you guys won't want to remember it, but the Marlon Samuels innings would have been a match-losing innings if not for Carlos Brathwaite.
Are you going to remind us of that one, are you?
But it's exactly that. If you've got a Rashid Khan or an Abdul Samad coming in and scoring at 300 a little bit earlier, instead of having a Vijay Shankar or a Nabi and these guys coming in, all good players, but they just couldn't quite accelerate, and that didn't help Pandey. So they did their job to repair the damage, but they needed to change gears quickly, which Pandey wasn't able to do, and that's what's counted against them in the final analysis.
Yeah, do you want... Go, Ross, I've got a good stat on this.
Okay, I was just going to say around, so Pandey being there. Pandey pretty much carried his bat in that innings. And that's the shameful bit about it. Bairstow got out in the 12th over. So we can sit there and go, oh, well, he faced 40 balls and Pandey faced, 44 balls, which I completely get. But that bit you talk around saying he doesn't have a fifth gear, Pandey doesn't have a third or fourth gear. Like, they sit there, and it was that was one of those things. He deserves the flack that he receives for this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ross, both of you talked, mate, led really well to this stat, actually. I don't know if you'd seen it as well, maybe. But Manish Pandey is now joint top for batters in the top 5 who have finished innings not out in unsuccessful chases, which is a little bit of a mouthful. But
KL Rahul is going to be the other one.
It's David Miller, actually.
David Miller?
Yeah. You wouldn't necessarily think that, but they're both on 4, which isn't loads, but they're still 2 clear of the chasing pack. Not exactly what you want. I mean, if you bat in the top 5 and you carry a bat and you're there at the end, really, you should be winning, or at least taking it, at least giving yourself a realistic shot of winning off the last ball or two. They lost by 10 runs. That's quite a lot of runs in a T20.
And they scored a 6 off the last ball, right?
And they've only lost 5 wickets. That's the problem with it. They haven't got the Rashid Khans in to bat. They haven't got any... Who else did they have left in the hutch to bat? They haven't got Bhuvi, they haven't got Rashid, Sandeep. Well, Natarajan can't bat, but I mean...
Well, Samad wasn't out, which is usually an indicator that you haven't used the resource properly. I mean, unless they've done something ridiculous. And I think that's probably, the next point to make, isn't it? Because, I mean, after Bairstow and Pandey had brought them back into the game, maybe, SRH made some really strange decisions in terms of who they sent in. We had a tweet in from Gautam, who basically, this is what he says: I want the lads over at the Cricket Podcast to give the SRH backroom staff an absolute tongue lashing for sending in Shankar instead of Samad. So Ross, the floor is yours. What an odd thing to do.
It's not even odd, is it? Ultimately, it's not odd. I said at the start that their structural issues and the way in which they run their T20 team, I just think is fundamentally broken. They can sit there and say, "Oh, we made the playoffs last year. I think they were fortunate to get to that position." Today, having Vijay Shankar go in before Samad strikes at 178. In that situation, Vijay Shankar walked out to the crease, and the commentators go, "Oh, his strike rate of 128. They're going to need all of that today." I was like, "They needed 52 of 20 balls, mate. What are you talking about? They need a strike rate of 250 here to get them even close." Samad then comes in and proves every single one who's a Samad fan right by bashing the first ball for 6. And you're just like, where's this been? Mohammed Nabi is what? 36, 37, and he's got some miles in the tank. Samad should have been pushed in at that point, I think. They needed that extra impetus, or they needed someone to run out Pandy, and it didn't happen, did it? So it was terrible game management from Sunrisers, which was not only seen in the batting department but as well as the bowling department. It was a pretty horrendous performance, actually.
Yeah, Ross, just to double down on that stat, and DJ, you were sort of alluding to this. Rashid Khan also strikes at 160 at the death. So you had those two guys who, 52 off 20 balls, always going to be tough. But at least give yourself like the outside chance. And
there's a thing, you shouldn't base. There's so many people around like cricket intuition and that gut feel. But what has Vijay Shankar been doing in the nets to say, "Oh, I'm going to go in ahead of these guys"? It doesn't matter if you're an all-rounder in the team. If some of the other kind of bowlers who can bat a bit can strike better than you, what are you doing in the team? It's a really, really strange one for me.
We probably saw some pretty good bowling from KKR as well, I'd say. I mean, it wasn't all SRH being abysmal, although that probably was the main thing that happened. We saw Chakravarti bowl well, I thought. We saw, Rosh, you've already said, Prasith Krishna looked pretty good. And we saw Harbhajan Singh back in action after about 17 years out of the game. DJ, who impressed you most of the KKR bowling unit defending that total today?
So I'd actually say Harbhajan Singh did pretty well to come back after, I think it was 3 years and get David. He would have got David Warner out for a duck if Pat Cummins had managed to hold on to it. That would have been a good celebration to watch. But Bhaji actually didn't look too bad. He didn't look too bad in the field either. But I thought Prasad Krishna was he was the game changer. If you get Warner in an SRH chase and he isn't around to marshal it, and they haven't got Kane Williamson in this team, and without Kane Williamson to marshal it in the middle overs, this team once Warner went, they were realistically not going to chase these, because he's their marquee player who'll get you 70, 80 odd and anchor that innings throughout at a decent strike rate and allow the others to bat around him. So I thought that wicket from Prasad Krishna was huge, and I thought he looked really impressive, actually.
Yeah. Jack, I think you're going to talk about how disciplined the performance was. Only one of their bowlers went above 9 in the economy, and that in T20, you're taking that every single game, really, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I thought they were really good. The other thing just to wrap up the game, then we've got a little bit about what we learned, and we've got some Twitter questions, and we'll do a few chat responses. Was this the first upset of the tournament, do you think, boys? Because we put a poll out before the game, and 75% of our Twitter followers, I suppose, said that they thought Sunrisers would win this match, which is quite a significant portion of the cricket podcast's audience. But KKR, they seem to win reasonably easily. Did it all? I guess what I'm saying is I'm struggling to get my head round how the strength of opinion can be so far in favour of the team that, in hindsight, looks so much worse. Ross?
Well, I think in our preview show, we said the issue with KKR is that you don't know which side was going to turn up. And last year, they were all over the place. They had injuries. They didn't really have those individual they didn't know their individual roles. But today, everything was structured. They had a plan. And regardless if CSK nailed the process or whatever kind of Dhoni kind of lives and dies by, they actually had a plan here. They've got a captain who, regardless if you think he's a good T20 captain or not, is someone who thinks about the game. They played to their matchups. They opened with a left-hand, right-hand combination. They were clearly thinking about how can we improve what we are doing here. And I thought it was very close to being a complete performance for kind of a first game back into a tournament that you're going to get. I mean, the fact that Andre Russell didn't really do too much other than he took a wicket, and that was about it. It was pretty disappointing other than that. Just shows you how well the rest of the team did. The consistency in Tripathi and Rana, that's going to be really important for them moving forward. And I mean, even Morgan hasn't contributed with the bat in across the last 8 games, including internationals that he's played. So hopefully it comes good. But the bowling unit and the batting unit fired today, and it was a really, really complete performance.
DJ, you've got the dubious honour of kind of letting us know what you think we've learned from Sunrisers Hyderabad's performance today. I mean, I guess we think about them as a bowling side, and maybe their bowlers just didn't turn up. What do you reckon?
So I think they probably got their combination slightly wrong and the KKR played very well. They KKR, remember, only played 2 full-time seamers. They had Shakib, they've got Varun Chakravarti, and they've got Harbhajan Singh. So they've obviously read the pitch differently from the SRH. So I think the SRH got that wrong. They could have potentially played another spinner in their side. But I think what we've learned is that they've got their batting order wrong. They need to push their big hitters up. If they've lost a couple of wickets, that's fine. Pandey can take his time, but he's got to go earlier than he did today. And you've got to push Samad up. You've got to utilize Rashid Khan. I mean, you can't leave him languishing without a bat. I mean, imagine the frustration he's got with all of this. So they've got their batting order wrong, and it's plain and simple for me. And they haven't played the right spinners, and KKR have defended the gap in their team, which is their inexperienced Indian quicks, by not playing at least one of them. They've only played one, which is Prasidh Krishna.
Right. We've actually gone through a lot of the stuff that came through on Twitter. I mean, basically, Twitter today was hundreds of people. Well, I say hundreds, if we're being kind to ourselves, hundreds. Hundreds of people saying...
Thousands. Yeah, come on. It was thousands.
Asking why Abdul Samad came in after Vijay Shankar. And the other question that we did get was around Kane Williamson's absence. And I guess that kind of fits into maybe some of SRH's structural issues as a squad. Ross, would you bring Williamson back in after that performance, or do you think he is set to ride the bench for a little longer?
I think when it comes to the bowling lineup for Sunrise, they need to have Rashid Khan kind of playing. They brought in Ul Rahman as well. Nabi's obviously a spin bowler, and playing at Chennai, they need to have high quality spin bowling. And it's really difficult for them to then go, oh, you should drop Nabi to fit in Kane Williamson. I don't think you can drop Bairstow. Bairstow was the person who's on the purple patch of form. He has clearly demonstrated that he can play the spinning ball in white ball cricket, and he's probably one of the best, if not the best, white ball batsman in the world right now in that role that he plays. David Warner is the one that is the question mark. If he's going to bat like he has been, that there is a big question there, but it's a really difficult one for them to fit around. And again, it comes down to what was a very bad auction strategy and then really bad mini auction strategy where they picked up Kedar Yadav. Like it's just baffling, some of the decisions they've made as a franchise.
Just on that Bairstow point about whether he's one of the best white ball players in the world, I did see that some people, when we were sort of lightly mocking Manish Pandey's match-winning innings for Kolkata Knight Riders today, a few people did note that they actually have similar kind of headline stats in terms of strike rate and average in T20 cricket. The thing is, in the last 3 years, Bairstow's strike rate's gone above 150 every year. So 18, 19, 20 is above 150. And Manish Pandey's never done that. And it's Bairstow's ability, and we've actually talked about this with respect to his Test career. Actually, it's changes he has made to his game that have meant he is now, as we speak here, one of the best white ball players in the world. Even if when you look at his record, you might say, not so sure about that. If you take just a little bit more, zoom in one more level, and you'll see he's really got fantastic numbers. Ross, should we head over to chat for a few questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, I've got a good one first off the bat, and this is from AK True. So, what do you guys think about Morgan's captaincy? Felt like DK was involved in some of the decision making today. DJ, I'm not sure if you've been a captain of a team before, but kind of leadership is always around surrounding yourself with good people, right? So it's not a one-man show when you're captain.
Yeah,
would you agree with that one?
Absolutely, and DK is the vice captain. He gave up the captaincy last year. For Morgan, from what we understand, that was voluntary because he wasn't scoring runs and he didn't want the stress of having to captain alongside it. And I mean, if you've got a good view from behind the stumps and you know what's happening, you've got an idea, you should definitely give it to your captain. So anyone who isn't captain, please do give your captain ideas, and anyone who is captain, please take the ideas from anywhere you can get them, because often you're quite alone on a field, and with someone like Samad smashing it everywhere, you can take you need all the help you can get. So I would definitely, I mean, captaincy by consensus is definitely the way to go for me. I'm not in the dictatorial camp at all. So. And I don't think Morgan is either. You see him often speaking to Joss Butler or Best and others on the field. So he obviously takes ideas from wherever they can come if they're good.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you, DJ. Jack, Rishi Nair asked, what about Dinesh Karthik's quick hit at the end? And I'll add something on this. How many times have you seen a professional cricketer, or just a cricketer in general, ask for another cricket bat and then disappoint with it? Today, fair play.
It always happens, doesn't it? We used to play, me and Ross, we used to actually play with a guy called Najib, and he would open it, he'd like bat himself in the top 3 every game, and he'd go out with his light bat, and after about 10 balls, he'd switch to the heavy bat. I never noticed any difference between pre and post bat swaps, but you know what? Like 22 off 9 balls at the end of a T20 innings is just about perfect. Like it's very hard to be more effective than that. Given 9 balls to face. And as we said a little bit earlier in the show, those 22 runs, or say someone had come in and scored 13, those extra 9 runs, that's the difference, really, between the two sides. That little sprint at the end, it just puts that target slightly out of reach of what SRH as a batting unit were capable of. And you know, we'll all remember this game for Nitish Rana and his 80, and we'll remember it, you know, well, I don't know if we will remember it, to be honest. But if we do remember it for anything, it will be Nitish Rana and his 80. But that Dinesh Karthik 22 off 9 deliveries is super, super important. And at some point in the future, we as cricket fans and cricket analysts will learn the importance of innings like that, and we'll be able to quantify it a little bit better than just saying it's super important. But I thought it was excellent, basically.
Brilliant. Young Lamppost has gone into the chat and said Ross keeps on talking about structural issues, but they've made playoffs every year since they won in 2016. Their team is light in the middle, but it's a trade-off they choose for their elite bowling. And you're right, they have made the playoffs in those years, but today was the perfect demonstration of why their lopsided strategy for selection actually limits their ability to win cricket matches. And DJ talked about their approach to the game and trying to be clear in the call and having a plan of, right, let's keep it to 160 and see what we can do with it and make sure that we get ourselves across the line. There is just that fundamental bit of going, are they that exciting to watch? Not really. Did they luckily make the playoffs last year? Yes. If Kings 11 Punjab didn't wet the bed, then they wouldn't have been nowhere near it, would they? And so that's the piece for me where they could be better. And this is it. There's a reason Mumbai won last year. The fact that they are miles ahead anyway, but Sunrisers have some of the players. They have the best T20 bowler in the world. And there is just that piece where you just like 1 or 2 better decisions would really kind of improve them.
Yeah, I'd agree
They're
with
kind
that.
of the antithesis to Brendan McCullum, who's sitting in the other camp with KKR, who says, if you've got even 1 dot ball, it's a waste of time. You've just got to attack. He's got Morgan in that camp as well, who's basically taken Brendan McCullum's strategy and and molded it into the England team, which is attack, attack, attack. You're 25 for 4, hit another 6. And that's how T20 cricket's meant to be played. That's why it's exciting. And that's why we watch it on most of our weekend.
I think that point's really important, DJ. And I think what we will hopefully see is what Morgan has done with the England team into this KKR team, where actually people know what their individual role is and they have that freedom to go and play with that aggressive abandon and kind of go, do you know what, I'm going to try and hit from the first ball. I'd rather hit a great cover drive, first ball for 4 to the boundary. And it was kind of game on from that point. It was a positive step, right? And we've talked about before, Jack, that Nathan Lemon, the old data, the analyst, is actually part of that unit. So we should see, I mean, that leadership team that is a progressive cricketing leadership team of having Brendan McCullum at the top, Morgan, supported by kind of analysts in that space, and then a really reliable vice captain in Dinesh Karthik. Like it's a pretty good setup, and I was impressed today.
Ross, do we have a couple more questions? Then we'll do a quick prediction for tomorrow and wrap up. So we've got 5 minutes left.
Yep, Jack, this is one that is for you. Why does Eoin Morgan only ever wear 2 hats?
I think he's made it his thing, hasn't he? I reckon Eoin Morgan's... He likes to think of himself maybe as a bit of a funny guy. Okay. I don't actually think... I've never seen him do anything funny, but in Eoin Morgan land, I reckon wearing 2 hats is like the most hilarious thing you could possibly do, and he has since the COVID restrictions have come into cricket, and people are a little bit well, you can't hand over stuff to the umpire and that sort of thing. 2 hats has become his trademark in a way, and you know, more for him. It's an interesting look, isn't it?
Well, thanks for Asakib.
Can you ever get to the Rakim Cornwall 3 caps level with Big Rack? Cornwall. That's what Morgan's got to aspire to, right?
Well, a building needs a strong foundation. And what stronger foundation are you going to get than Rakim Cornwall? Let's be honest.
It's got a bit to go.
So, and then I think DJ, I'll give you the bit. We've gone in pretty hard on Sunrisers Hyderabad, and there's been a couple of people who've kind of said, is there any positives to take away other than Rashid Khan from their performance today?
I mean, it's a long tournament. We must remember that. There are 14 games played by every team. The Sunrisers Hyderabad actually have the biggest headache with the quality of their overseas players. Remember, they've got Jason Holder on the bench. They've got Kane Williamson on the bench. They've got Mujib ul Rahman on the bench, another spinner. So they're going to take time working out what their combination is going to be, their best combination that they can play off the overseas players. So, I mean... They will all click at some stage. I wouldn't worry too much. It's one game into the tournament. If we were judging by that sort of performance, the Delhi Capitals would have already won the IPL with their smashing win over the CSK yesterday. Of course, the Delhi Capitals being my team that I support. So yesterday was a great day for us. But I mean, I wouldn't worry too much. They're all intelligent cricketers and they're all very talented, and they'll work out if they need to move Manish Pandey up or send him in at a different stage, or as Ross suggested, run him out at the right time. They'll do that.
Dev G, thanks very much for that question. Jack, one more question. I think we'll have to wrap it up after that. This is from AD Booth. Will Jason Roy even get a game?
I think there's the possibility that if Warner drops out, that he comes in as a reserve opener. But that's really the only way I think they could fit him in the side. Shall we wrap up just with a quick word about tomorrow's fixture, which is, of course, the Rajasthan Royals v the Punjab Kings. Sorry, every time I go to say Kings 11 Punjab, but it... I also don't get why their initials are PBKS. That doesn't make any sense. But let's quick prediction on tomorrow, Ross. Who's going to win, and in one sentence, why?
Rajasthan Royals are going to win tomorrow. I actually think that there's been too many changes to that Punjab Kings lineup, and it will take them a couple of games to kind of gel together. But then we'll see the true force that is in play.
DJ, same question.
So I'm going to go with the Rajasthan Royals winning, and in one line, I think it's going to be KL Rahul top scoring, but strike rate is overrated. I
think Punjab Kings are going to win easily. I don't. Who's even going to bowl for Rajasthan Royals? I could get a game as a bowler for Rajasthan Royals. I think they're an absolute disgrace of a T20 side. And I KL Rahul or not, they're a bunch of bowlers who are going to go round the park.
I do hope that Chris Gale plays, actually. I do hope that they don't fall into that trap of last year of going, oh, we've got a guy who can actually smash the ball over the place. Let's just give him a go. Just hide him. Just hide him. It's absolutely fine to hide him in the field. We should talk about, Jack, the merchandise that we've got. Or we are getting. And they went, well, not us personally, but for each of our teams, we have all ordered different items of attire to wear on the upcoming podcast. So the delivery times are a little bit long from India to England, but we should get them sooner rather than later. So I think Max has gone all out. So look forward to seeing Ed Sheeran draped in CSK gear. So
that'll be good. We might not be back tomorrow because we have other urgent podcast business. So we might have to do a double game day on Tuesday or a triple game day on Wednesday. It's been great doing this live, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. And for people who've been asking in the chat, Max will be back. We haven't permanently replaced him. He's just, I don't know what he's doing, like getting asbestos out of his house or something boring like that. Thank you very much for listening.
And subscribe.
That's it, yeah. And we're at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. DJ, do you want to mention where people can find you really briefly before we call it a day?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the handle One Tip, One Hand, which is obviously the gully cricket rule that you all know. It is at the rate of 1 tip, TIP, one hand. And write into us, contact at One Tip, One Hand. And we've just reopened our YouTube channel. And by the looks of your YouTube comments, we look forward to being as successful as you one day.
Yeah, there's a link to that in the show notes if you want to head over there and catch what the guys at Edges and Sledges are doing. Thanks very much for listening and watching.
Thanks, guys.